Well, hello. Here we are back. Now this room still has not recovered since the West Coast run. We're looking out the back window here, but covered by curtains. The curtains without. All right, so we're talking about November 20th, 1998 today for channel member Spud, a show that almost everybody who is a Phish fan has heard, I would think, at this point. And Spud was fortunate enough to be there. It was also part of the Hampton Comes Alive CD official release, which was kind of golden for a fan who I became a fan around, somewhere in the hiatus era, really. Strangely, obviously I was aware of Phish and had heard Phish in the late 90s around the time these shows were happening and this CDs were released. I was just still not fully on board, so, and I know I talk about this a lot, but it's, it's always interesting, the origin stories. And when I listen to a show like this, which was a part of the origin, because I had missed all the tape trading time, I wasn't in the cassette circle. Cassettes really weren't a thing. There were still plenty of people recording, obviously, tapers out there. So I missed all of that, and the internet was awful, and I was kind of new to the whole internet Phish thing, so I didn't know all of the greatest places, but you could get your hands on some shows online, no doubt. And this was pre-Live Phish. That would come just a couple years later. So officially released stuff was absolutely awesome, and then this was 2 nights worth. So I'm sure a lot of people, too, have that same similar story. Even if you weren't in the cassette trading thing, stuff like this was just awesome, For a lot, it's hard to imagine now going to a show and then not hearing it again. It's amazing, right? Like now we can listen to it on the way home from the shows. It's crazy. But it's hard to express just how golden this was. So and then which gets me to, something I dare say, perhaps a bit overrated, not all, really, really good shows, even by Hampton standards there had good shows. But maybe not all-timers, at the time listening to these back then when you just didn't have everything at your fingertips. It was, it seemed like some of the greatest stuff ever. Very cover heavy, and some of them, like Roses Are Free, very welcome. Quinn the Eskimo, a bust out at this point, but then Gettin Jiggy Wit It. One of the things the show's most known for, the Bathtub Gin is obviously the number one reason the show is known. The fact that Spud and perhaps Super Bon Bon were there might be the number 2 reason the show's known, but mostly because of the Gettin Jiggy Wit It. Which is ridiculous. They also opened with Rock and Roll Part 2. So they covered there were some very unfortunate covers here that have not aged well. You got one guy that's a creep, and then another guy's just a total ass, and Will Smith. Luckily, the other covers, were safe there. The Roses Are Free. Okay, the guys in Weens can have a bit of an attitude. You got a little tood. That's all right. They're good. They're all right. They haven't done anything too embarrassing. And Hold Your Head Up. I'm not sure. We got a Bob Weaver reference in Gettin Jiggy Wit It. That was huge. Big. I don't know. Then we got the bust out of Bob. Well, I think Bob Weaver was throughout. I was going to say we didn't go from 98 to 2017 or when. I don't know when the most recent Bob Weaver reference was. It was more recent than that, I feel. God, that was a long time ago now. You believe how long ago the Baker's Dozen was already? It's insane. At some point, pretty soon, we're going to look back and be like, the Baker's Dozen was as long ago as about how 1.0 lasted. If you're like me and you count 1988 as the beginning of 1.0. I don't know. It's not real. It's not factual, but that's how I do it. All right. So, the Bathtub Gin, the only thing it lacks maybe is the longevity. And it kind of stays on one level. It doesn't, go to all these different layers, like this type of jam, and then we're going back to the song, and then this type of jam. Now Paige is going insane. Trey soloing. Mike and Fishman just doing the Mike and Fishman routine. No, none of that. It was just it's Bathtub Gin. Once they get into the jam, it's just just kind of like I've said a lot about some jams recently from these classic shows. It's like they create a new song on the spot. Like Bathtub Gin was always there. There's hints of it for sure. Maybe even more than hints. But it didn't need to. Think the best parts of the Riverport Gin, the Went Gin. It was in that neighborhood. The Murat Gin, maybe comparable to the Murat Gin in length, and lacking the really just going off the rails and bringing it back and going out. And I don't mean that in any as a diss either. It's fine, just a straight boom. Let's go. And let's not get off the tracks. Let's just like, amp it up to 500 miles per hour on the joyous sound, Everybody just like, whew. It was like, did they rehearse this? What is this? No, it just, some nights. I don't use the word magic very often. I get a little annoyed by that. The magic. It's not magic. Fucking played together for 40 plus years, I would hope they can kind of get in sync. Or why are we that impressed? No, all right, I'm kidding about that. It's not as easy as you would think. Trust me, I've been in bands, dude. It ain't easy, I own a keyboard. All right, so I know I haven't said very much about the show because I'm just assuming most people know it. It was really more about just like what the show was at the time, if you became a fan, like in the, early 2000-ish kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe some people never even owned the CD or whatever. I could not find it anywhere. That's disappointing. I don't know, I don't know. I do have a crate up there, an old wooden Anheuser-Busch crate that's full of CDs, but I don't think there's anything Phish in there. It's a little fishy. All right, guys. Boom. Spud, thank you for the request. Thanks again for the trip down memory lane. I think you've busted out. Yeah, you've done the North Carolina DVD. Clifford Ball had a DVD along with it. I like that. I like the officially released stuff. A lot of times it's a trip down memory lane for myself. And others, perhaps. I don't know. When was the last time you guys busted out Hampton Comes Alive? You know what I mean? Like I said, there's just so much now. This isn't as golden as it once was. Go ahead, bust it out. You could be getting down to that sick meat. The stash had some, early on in that stash, a little flubby. All right, boom, we're out of here. Clifford Ball, this was not. We're out of here. Thanks, Bud. Super Bon Bon. Hi.